All right, sorry, it took a second there. Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Geek Vibes Live interview. For today's interview, I'm your host, Tia, and I have with me someone that you may be super aware of. He's super active on Twitter. There was I believe it was Deadline article about you recently, and it's just amazing to have you on. James Gavsie from oh God, Who Would Win podcast. Thank you so much, James, for being with me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, like I said earlier, I've responded to a whole bunch of your posts. So yeah, I feel like we're like Twitter associates already.
Absolutely. Yeah. For some reason, I got tongue-tied there, and I feel like every time I'm scrolling on Twitter, you have a new post of who would win. And it's funny because I believe you had recently one between John Wick and The Punisher, which was hilarious because I have like a segment called Tea Time with Tia, and I did that recently as well because I probably was like the last person on earth to watch the John Wick trilogy.
Oh my God. Yeah, you got to change that. When John Wick 4 comes out, you got to be the first person to watch. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, I have to make up for that. I have to be the first one in theaters if we ever get to go to the theaters again.
Maybe. Yeah, you know what? This too shall pass, I think.
100%. James, before I start with anything, speaking of this, how are you and your family doing with the pandemic that's still going on?
I'm knocking on wood right now. We're fine. We're good. Things are good with the family. Everyone's healthy. I'm so thankful that we're in a good spot, and everything is very good on our end. We're being very careful, taking all the precautions, and I got to tell you, I kind of like wearing the masks.
It has grown on me.
Yeah.
When it first started and you were wearing, say, the typical blue, white medical mask, it was kind of annoying and it didn't go with your outfit. But now people have gotten super creative. I'm not talented like that, but a lot of people I've seen are talented and they make really awesome masks online.
Well, why do we have to stop at masks, right? Just hear me out. So if we had a mask on, right? And then we kept going like, I don't know, with like winter soldier type of clothing. Is it really, when I go in the grocery store, I already get enough weird looks as is before the pandemic. Let's just keep going, see what happens.
I saw someone with a mask online that literally had the metal spikes on it, and I was like, that is so cool, but I can only imagine walking into a store, the looks you would get.
You got to be careful. I'm already kind of a weird looking guy in the first place. So then when I walk in, I'm a little bit bigger than average. And, walking around the corner and all of a sudden there's an older person there who's just like not expecting to see a bear walk at them. And then they kind of, go, anyway, it's all good. I'll stop scaring people. I'm going to stick with the mask. That's where I'll go.
You say that, and then I bet in the winter you're going to have some like metal arm or something like that. You're just going to go over the top.
Yeah, I'm already searching Amazon right now.
I love it. I love it. James, on top of your Who Would Win podcast, you are behind Digital Sky, which is cool. You have the background right there. And you are actually here to talk about your new endeavor, Rideshare, which is really interesting. For those who are watching / listening, I'd love for you to describe what Rideshare is so that we can all get a better picture of what that is.
Sure. Rideshare is this really cool audio drama that's produced. It's like a Hollywood production. We've got an amazing writer and director, Scott Zachary, and we've got insane talent. Eric Martzoff, who's Brady Black from Days of Our Lives, who's also Booster Gold on Smallville. Britt Barron is in it as well. She's one of our stars, and of course, she's from Glow and Final Fantasy Remake, plus some other big names I'm not at liberty to say because their episode hasn't come out yet. And we've got great sound engineers and editors, and I'm one of the producers. And by the way, I am the one who's thankful to be part of this amazing team. So what happened was Digital Sky put out their first season, which was an anthology series. And really what happened was each of those 10 episodes of season 1 was a pilot to see which one of these is going to get a spinoff. Rideshare, the story of this enigmatic, like really crazy guy, Keith, who looks like a normal guy and talks like a normal guy, and then all of a sudden pulls off this crazy Dexter meets Punisher meets Bruce Wayne plan with this psychological warfare that no one saw coming. He just, he's like, hey, how am I going to make money, have some fun with life? I know, I'll be this crazy rideshare driver with some crazy psychopathic tendencies. And yeah, so all of a sudden you've got this guy who he'll get into a car. His target is he'll start up as a passenger. He'll order a rideshare service. The driver comes in. He's like, yeah, really nice car. Yeah, I'm stealing it. And he'll tell the person. And then all of a sudden he takes their car. And what's really weird about this, because the writer, Scott Zachary, he's brilliant. He writes these scripts where the person gets their car stolen and they're like, that was actually not that bad. So he's like, I'm going to give everyone a great story to tell. So it's a story of Keith as he's going through his adventures of staying underneath the radar of the police and no one knowing who he really is and just having, doing what he wants to do. He never needs money because he can always get it. He never needs a place to stay because he can always get a hotel room or steal someone, figure out how to break into someone's house, or they'll let him into his house and he'll take it. This is just someone who can acquire anything he wants at any time. So money doesn't have a real value for him.
Wow, that is so interesting. And I have to know, I mean, I know you said Scott is the writer, and where was the inspiration behind this?
Scott hasn't told me yet, so I'm trying to figure this out. He had a Scott Zachary. If you look him up on IMDb, he's got a list a mile long of movies, television shows. He was the person who created the very first web series ever. I mean, he was working with AOL back in the day and has kept on going. He's the head of the curve. So what happened was he had a story, I believe, that he based Rideshare off of from years ago. And then we got such a good reception for Rideshare in the first season of Digital Sky. And then everyone overwhelmingly said, hey, let's do a spin-off series. And then that's what led to the motion comic, which is what you see on YouTube. So it's not just a podcast like a scripted audio drama. It's now we've got these great artists and amazing animators who are bringing a really cool black and white gritty motif and video to the story as well.
Yeah, I saw that, and I'm going to get to that definitely in a second. I just wanted to say, first of all, congratulations on Rideshare getting picked up. I believe I saw 10 episodes.
That's right. Yeah, we're producing
That's
10
awesome.
episodes. Yeah, the whole team has, if you look at every individual in this team, we've all put a lot of work to get where we are today. It didn't happen overnight, that is for sure. With that being said, we're super happy with how things are going.
That's awesome. That really is. And I know that this probably is a common theme to questions now. It's just that what we're dealing with. I mean, how is it putting something like this together during, say, lockdowns? All of anyone else in the entertainment industry is having to take all these huge precautions. Are you guys finding that, or is it a little easier because, say, it's a podcast?
Yeah, it's funny. We Zoic Media, who's the production company behind Digital Sky and what have you, we had a lot of discussions of like, okay, what are we going to do here? This is our situation because everything was done in studio, right? And by the way, I love being in studio. I love the magic. I love sound stages. There's just something about being on set in general that's just crazy, like amazing. And all of a sudden, there's no studios to go to. There's no sets to go to. Even with things opening now, I don't think there's going to be more than 20% of content being produced compared to last year. So we got together as a team, and we said, so how are we going to do this? Hey, we've got Zoom. I think we're using Zencaster to record people, and then people record their own audio on their own system as a backup, and they send it to us. And we just do the same thing. We write and direct and produce it with everyone being very remote.
That's really cool. And so you just mentioned that it's also a visual, which is what I had seen in the article that I had read about Rideshare. Where did that idea come from to not only have it as a audio, but then also to incorporate the visual aspects?
Scott Zachrin, big, huge comic book fan and also a big personality in that world. He was good friends with Stan Lee. He helped produce a comic book, the movie with Mark Hamill back in the day. I mean, this is someone who's got a prolific background in comic books and geek culture. And then there's me, who's, who would win is all about geek culture and crossing over universes and what have you. And we just said, what are we going to do to stand out? Because we've got some amazingly huge plans for what we're going to do with Digital Sky that we'll announce in due time. And we said, what's the next step? We can't produce live action anything right now. What can we do right now for good content? And it was almost unanimous. Well, it sounds like it's time for a motion comic, right? Let's just go with that. And just, we know what the characters are supposed to look like. We have an understanding. Let's just go with that. And that's been a really interesting experience. I've never been part of a production team that put together a motion comic before.
Yeah, it is certainly an interesting way to move forward with telling a story. Who is the artist behind these comics?
Sure. Well, the team we got this amazing artist named Ian Moss, and he runs I think it's mossstudios.com. This guy's incredible. His work ethic is insane. And what we have him do just under the period of time he's got, what he's producing it's really, really, really crazy good. On top of that, he's a great guy. And then we have this incredible animator named Chris Warren, and I think it's mediachris.com is his website, I believe. Chris Warren, he's done a lot of motion comics motion comics like the small little kind of like commercial motion comic advertisement for Marvel Secret Wars. He's done stuff for Valiant. He's done stuff for Microsoft. This is a person who's like prolific at doing motion comics. This guy is a wizard. So when you combine what Ian Moss can do and then Chris Warren with the storytelling of a Scott Zachrin with an Eric, where I'm going with this, Eric Motzoff, Britt Barron, the magic's there. It's kind of crazy, the team we put together.
That's really awesome. And how does it feel because you have big names in this project, as you just mentioned, and obviously the names that you can't mention. I mean, how does that, I can't even imagine how that must feel to get just those sort of people interested in your project and wanting to be a part of it.
I gotta tell you, it feels amazing. It feels great. I can't believe I'm talking with these level of people. By the way, we're talking with their agents and managers and all of these and everyone that we brought onto the project has been really just really cool as well. So that helps a lot. And it sometimes I have to pinch myself because I'm originally from a small little city in Ottawa, Canada, right? Where we all have that story. We're from somewhere else, and you never know. So it's I'm very, very thankful. I don't know what I did to deserve this, but I'm going with a full blast.
Was that a dog that I just heard?
That was a dog. My next door neighbors. I've got great neighbors. Their dogs are crazy. And, the barking dogs where you have to then stand and look at them and they're like, oh gosh, I shouldn't bark. I'm like, yeah. So I've got a few of those next door.
I'm sorry. I have a dog as well. And I thought maybe it was your dog. And I thought
I do. We just got arrested because I'm not busy enough, which I am. We just got a beautiful yellow lab rescue. Who's still a year old, but just this amazing, amazing temperament. And I was going to name it Ace, Batman's dog, Ace. Right. And once my family stopped laughing and saying, no, we're not doing that, we decided on Apollo.
Oh, I like that. That's actually, I have a cat, and that's his name, Apollo.
No way, really?
Yeah, I'm not even kidding.
I think alike. This is good.
And I'm sorry. Moving back to Rideshare there. Are you going to maybe voice one of the characters, maybe act in one of the episodes? Will we be seeing that?
Listen, I think it's kind of you're not showing a lot of integrity if you create a character for yourself that you're going to then voice and then possibly appear as in a motion comic. So the answer to that question is absolutely.
Okay. I mean, listen.
Why not? Are you kidding me?
Why not?
I don't know when it's going to happen, but I told the team, I'm like, great, I will do whatever you need me to do. I am in this. I am going to do a good role. I'm not like the person who's like, here are your keys, sir. I'm not that person. I'm getting a real role, and I'm appearing in the motion comic because, that's why.
I feel like I would do that as well. I would be the person that I'm like, I have to be in this. I mean, Kevin Smith did it. Right. He crafted this great little character for himself that's part of essentially pop culture, really. So, I mean, that's why I had to ask. But I look forward to when that happens for you.
It'll be cool. It'll be cool.
Awesome. So with Rideshare, that's your new project and everything, and you're still going with Who Would Win. How many years have you been doing that right now?
Well, Who Would Win's been around for a little bit. I think we're I think we're on to our I think it's like 2.5 years or so that we've been doing it. Who Would Win, just to let you know, was a TV show idea I pitched. And yeah, what happened was I told the story a little bit. The producers who I was pitching it to were like, yeah, but did people really talk about, who would win between Luke Skywalker and Spider-Man? And I'm like, let me show you on YouTube. Give me 30 seconds. Here's over 1 billion views of that. So I said, let me just show you a proof of concept. It started off as a segment on someone's podcast, then grew and grew and grew, and we've been doing the grassroots marketing with it too. And now we're where we're at today. So we got a great audience, social media, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they're eating this stuff up. And it's just, I look at it as Who Would Win's a sport where anyone who's ever had a character that they've loved and has spent years following that character can now get a return on that investment and, be part of the debate and tell us why that character would win in a hypothetical matchup.
What has been, if you could remember, what has been your favorite battle that you've had on Who Would Win?
I've had so many fun battles. The one that sticks out the most was, because of course we've done the Cyclops versus Master Chief. We've done, Black Panther versus Darth Maul. But my favorite one, because it drove my co-host crazy, and I played such psychological warfare with them, was Michael Myers from Halloween versus Scooby-Doo. Yeah, exactly. See that face you just made? Exactly. So that day we recorded, no joke, we had Stefan Thomas, who's the CEO of the Creative Extreme comic book company. He came into town, flew into LA, and was the judge for that show, right? Really great guy. Check out thecreativeextreme.com. Awesome comic book company. Anyway, so he comes in. And right before the show, Ray Stacanis, great guy, my co-host, he and I disagree on everything, by the way, getting into massive arguments. And he looks and he's like, you have no chance in this battle. Scooby-Doo versus Michael Myers. What is Scooby-Doo going to do? And I'm like, oh, really? He's like, okay, no problem. And I laid out the craziest, most insane argument. Like, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. You listen to that episode, you would absolutely thought I was high or I just come off like I just hit like I don't know. Anyway, I came up with the craziest episode. Stefan Thomas saw my way right away, and then I got the win. And I'll never forget, after the show, Ray calls me. He's like, what the hell just happened? And it was insanity. It was crazy. And my wife was like, really? This is what you're doing? This is who I married? And I'm like, yeah, you're welcome, by the way.
How do you even come up, like, that's just one prime example that you gave me, but how do you come up with your battles?
Well, it's a little bit of a process now because we have a whole production team behind it, and we've got social media people, we've got some marketing people. So what happens now is Ray and Stacanis and I, and again, Ray Stacanis, great, amazing co-host. Although I don't like the guy personally, I gotta say professionally, he's amazing. And he's got a great podcast, Knowing Is Half the Podcast, where they review 1980s classic cartoons in like a comedic way. Yeah, it's awesome. Anyway, he and I come up with some ideas, and then we kind of run them by the production team, and they have their own ideas. And then we all talk about them, and then we say, okay, we kind of like one of the characters, so we'll put it up on Twitter. And we'll say, for example, Vegeta versus ? Who do you think they should battle? And we get some crazy ideas, and we usually take one of the suggestions the fans make, and then we weigh it against who I think he should fight, who Ray thinks he should fight, and then who our whole team thinks they should fight. So it's a really long, big, and we weigh everything. We're like, who has a movie coming out? Who's got a bigger fan base? Is this going to alienate anyone? It's a whole, we don't just randomly pick it. There's a crazy process we put into it.
That has to be, because not trying to shamelessly plug myself, but I have a weekly podcast called The Top 10. And
fantastic podcast, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it becomes difficult every week to really think of a subject matter for your podcast. And you could think, oh, there's so many top 10 ideas that you can put out there. But after a while, I've been doing it now. I think I want to say I've been the host of that show for maybe a year and a half or something, and every week to come up with something. Do you feel that where you kind of hit a lag almost sometimes of, gosh, I don't even know what to do at this point?
I don't. Let me explain why. Okay.
Now I feel bad about myself.
No, don't. It's not that you don't have something. You have too much of something else. Possibly too much of responsibility as an adult. Or maybe you have the mindset of an adult in an adult's body. I'm what you call a man-child. If I could eat candy every day and, I would totally do it. It's not good for me, so I don't. But I'm fairly certain I stopped progressing emotionally and mentally probably around 11. And I've stayed in that mindset ever since. Again, my wife loves that. But it's just something where I get such enjoyment out of this. And, the fact that it's now a professional thing and you're getting paid to do, you're like, what world do you live in where that's a possibility? Right? Like that's, I have spreadsheets and a big, whiteboard in my office, and I'm like, who should, Batwoman fight? Well, let's see. There's this person. It's one of the greatest things of all time.
It really is one of those things where you look at it and you're like, wow, I am now a podcaster, which is funny. So I went to college for broadcast journalism. I wanted to be a radio disc jockey ever since I saw Private Parts.
Oh,
like back in the day, I was I want to be like Howard Stern. Not as raunchy, obviously, but I just loved his setup with everything. And now it's like kind of finally coming to fruition. For you, did you always want to be in this sort of field?
It's where I'm from. It's pretty much standard that, the formula is go to school, work after school, part-time, whatever it is, make enough money to go to college. And remember, Canadian colleges and universities are a fraction of the cost of American colleges and universities, right? And, so you could actually save up money as a teenager to go.
What is saving money?
Let me put it this way. This was back, well, I know, this was, this was a different time. It's so funny. I had two loves in my life growing up. One was combat sports, and the other one was software development, like coding.
Nice.
So, yeah, you'd think so, but the combination didn't really lend well, didn't blend. But so anyway, growing up, I was, passionately in one area, did the whole martial arts thing, played football, whatever. But you were able, there's some big companies I happened to get into and I'm, again, very fortunate, got a good paying position. And that's how I was, my parents helped a little bit too. I was able to go to college because it was very affordable. But in Canada, the formula is you go to college, right? You get a job with a big company, and that's where you're going to stay. Maybe you jump once or twice to different companies, but that's your life. That's it. That was not for me. And I'm like, I don't want to know how I'm going to die when I'm 21 in terms of like, this is my life plan. Right. And where I grew up, Ottawa, Canada, it's a great city. It really is. But it's also a great place, at least when I grew up, to see that there's a lot going on in the world and that you're not part of it. And I'm like, I want to be part of what's going on. So I knew LA was where I was going to end up. And I moved from Ottawa, Canada to Atlanta, Georgia, joined a great fight school and fight team and all that for MMA back in the day, and then made my way over to LA, started an MMA school here, and then went into entertainment after. Yeah, so I don't have the traditional path. To answer your question, I knew I wanted to be one of three things growing up. A superhero, I wanted to be in the entertainment industry, and I wanted to have like, a martial arts school. That was it. So I'm still working on the superhero thing, but I got the other two. So I'm super, super happy.
You're 2 out of 3. So I think you're pretty good. Right? It's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah.
No, I like that. Listen, there is no traditional path anymore. I always say unless you are a lawyer or a doctor, you're never going to go in a traditional path. I mean, after school for me, I didn't automatically go into the entertainment industry. I literally worked at a law firm. I worked at a bunch of different places because in 2012, there was nothing at that point. Right. I was like, I don't know how to get into the field that I want to, but I need money. So that's exactly how it is. Yep. But that's so I saw on your bio that you also are really into MMA. So, I mean, it's kind of like your podcast, Who Would Win, I feel like a little is like incorporating that because you still have the fight aspect to it.
You are really, really perceptive. So before I started the podcast, and again, I didn't get into this to become a podcaster, right? That's not, but podcasting is awesome. It's great. The goal, I wanted to be a producer. I wanted to produce great content. Podcasting is one piece of it, but live action, documentaries, movies, that's where my head's at in terms of where I want to go. But I was doing some production work for this online platform that no longer exists. It was called Mikasa. And Mikasa was this channel that geared itself towards English-speaking Latin Americans. And there's like 60, like where English is a primary language. I think when we did the study, there was 60 million strong. It was really a large group of the population. And they wanted combat sports, but Mikasa's like, but we don't have a ton of money to produce it. We need like what's called a talking head show. I'm like, got it, where people are in the studio and we're talking about something cool. That's where Who Would Win actually came to be. So I said, let me bring in some fighters. I'll be the judge, and we'll discuss Andre the Giant versus Bruce Lee. And they were like, oh my God, yes, yes, yes. Now, just as we were about to go into production, Mikasa lost all of its funding.
Oh.
No, it's okay. It was a blessing in disguise. Yeah. And that's when I started pitching the show, and that's how Who Would Win really came in. But you're absolutely right. It all came from combat sports. You know, all the way back in the 1970s, Muhammad Ali took on Antonio Inoki, who was this pro wrestler from Japan and a great fighter as well. That was the first kind of quote-unquote MMA pay-per-view in the world, right? But what's really cool is that Muhammad Ali was actually supposed to take on Bruce Lee. Yeah, but Bruce Lee passed away. So there's that's where Who Would Win. Like, you can have a debate anywhere in the world. Take your favorite fighter. I'll take mine. Let's see who's going to win. That will never get old or boring.
No, absolutely not. I have a question for you because it was in a recent interview and we were talking about John Wick before. Sure. So and I'm not a big sports fan at all, but for some reason, Boban Marjanovic has I've become obsessed with the guy. You know, he's the one who John Wick fought in the third one. He said during a discussion with Shaquille O'Neal that if it were in real life, he'd kick Keanu Reeves' butt. Do you think that he would win?
That is such a hard question. Okay, so I happen to know some of the stunt people involved with John Wick. And and by the way, these people are insanely talented, amazing, and willing to take crazy punishment. A lot of time when you see some of the stunts, you're like, oh my God, that person must have gotten hit really hard. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did. They totally did. And they took the shot. These people are that tough. The reality is, I'm trying to be political as I answer this, and I'm normally never political. I usually just say it's this person. If you're saying the character of John Wick wins. If you're saying Keanu Reeves, the actor, probably is not going to win that one.
That's what I feel like.
but Keanu Reeves, just to let your audience know, this I know firsthand. He is a good fighter. Mm-hmm. He trains like no one's business. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for, I don't know, I don't even want to say how long, and boxing, kickboxing, and wrestling, combatives, and knife fighting. You know, I've done my fair share of gun training, all that kind of stuff. The way he put himself into the roles, he's a walking badass. Keanu Reeves is a legit walking badass.
I can feel that in his choreography, which always makes a difference when an actor knows how to legitimately fight when they're in their own fight scenes.
Don't get started.
Really? Oh, okay. I'm just saying, you could tell when someone didn't put the footwork in, and you're just like, all right. I know, I'm going to get you all riled up here.
No, but I've been in situations where, without mentioning any names, and actors are, we get to talking, and they said, oh, did you see this movie? I'm like, oh, yeah, I loved you in that movie. It was great. What did you think of my fight scenes? And I'm like, yeah, so I really like the development of your character, and I don't know what to tell you. It's, Now, with that being said, then you get the Keanu Reeves, who you're like, wow, you blew me away. You legitimately have these skills like that, and that, for people like you and I who see the legitimacy, how great is that? Yeah,
it's amazing. I didn't know that you yourself, though, were involved in training in martial arts. So would you win against John Wick?
Yes.
That's a big promise to make there.
I know, right? And, I've got to be careful what I say, but I got into a fun argument with some people, and they're like, okay, just no weapons. Who could you fight right now? And we all were thinking about it. And I said, okay, well, if someone has superpowers, that's a game changer. But I do think I could take on the Punisher.
John Bernthal's Punisher, or just the Punisher in general?
I'd say that, by the way, John Bernthal's Punisher, how amazing was that,
Oh,
right?
God.
I'd say that the Punisher is a character, only because if he didn't have weapons, I think I got a good shot.
He's very good at, behind, behind.
Yeah, give him a knife or a gun or something. This guy's, insane. He'll take down superheroes and supervillains.
Yeah.
But, you can always choke someone out. Doesn't matter how tough you are. Everyone can get choked out.
Oh, John, don't get me started on that. John Bernthal's Punisher was the best for me. When that whole debacle happened with Netflix and Marvel, I was like, you mean I'm not going to get a third season of The Punisher?
I know.
And it's I know I have to be realistic that Marvel's most likely going to recast, but I'm like, come on, you're bringing back J.K. Simmons for J. Jonah Jameson. You're talking about bringing back some other people. Bring Charlie Cox back as Daredevil and bring John Bernthal. You can keep, this is just my personal opinion, you can keep the others. I'm neither here nor there if you decide to recast, say, Jessica Jones or Luke Cage, and definitely Iron Fist. I'm not being nice there.
What? You don't like Iron Fist?
Do you know why I actually liked Iron Fist, the show?
Why?
Only because of Tom Pelphrey's performance as Ward Meacham. That was the only reason. I thought that he was phenomenal in that.
We're in full agreement on that. Absolutely. Absolutely. The one thing I've met writers of several Marvel movies, and by the way, every one of them is insanely talented. But what I do know is that because everyone hears different entertainment news and gossip and what we think is happening, and one person called me and said, "Oh, I can't believe a certain comic book movie is having their movie made into a TV show." And what I know from the studio, who's supposed to be making the show, they're not doing anything for the next 3 years. That's a mandate. And I'm like, cool. I'm so happy they're doing that show. You know what I mean? There's what I do know is that we don't know. So to answer your question or to answer that statement, John Bernthal could possibly come back. We don't know. Things change also on a daily basis.
Absolutely. I mean, especially with what we're seeing happening now, Marvel just had to push back its whole entire, slate with Black Widow and everything, Eternal, Shang-Chi. So they may want to reshuffle things, maybe get rid of some projects just to make room or something. You never know what's going to happen. And I've had to now accept that in my life I cannot be hung up on these sort of things. But going back to where you were saying that, your overall goal wasn't necessarily to be a podcaster, but to be a producer. So, I mean, I know you're doing Rideshare right now, and we really want to get you actually in one of the episodes. But
absolutely.
What is the next step? What else are you looking to now do?
Wow, great question. To answer that, I would say it in one word: lots.
I like that. Lots,
Yeah, we're in such an interesting time because, if you have an ability to produce content, people that like to be in content are really saying, well, what else can I do that I wouldn't normally do, or I would normally do for a lot less now? So, I've actually told this to several people I know. I'm saying, hey, if you haven't, want to get that guest who you thought there's no way to get them, contact their manager now. Now is the time. Because they're we're looking for ways for us to stay in the public eye. So with that being said, what I've learned from this whole process is, I'm trying to establish a reputation as not just a good producer, but a good producer to work with. And once that happens, I'm seeing that there's a lot of doors that are starting to open.
I'm sorry about that, James. My Wi-Fi went off for a second. I missed kind of what you said there.
Sure, no worries. What I'm saying is like now I'm seeing with like the current state of affairs, if you've got a good reputation and you have an ability to produce stuff, in other words, pay people, all of a sudden there's a lot of doors that are open. So we have some very big announcements coming from Zoic Media and Digital Sky. And when that happens, well, I'd love to come back on your show and kind of say like, this is what we had in mind. This is where we're going with it. And it'll be good. That's all I can say for now. I'm not at liberty to say more, but it'll be really good.
Absolutely. And just as we're kind of winding things down here, James, I just got two more for you. One is, if you could work with anyone in the industry, who would you want to work with?
Wow. I'll tell you what, instead of a person, I'd love to work on the film side with either DC or Marvel. But I'd also love the opportunity to work to create a vision I have for a certain superhero I've created. You know what I mean? That to answer that. In terms of who I'd love to work with, you know, I have wow, this is kind of heartfelt. Chadwick Boseman, he's you know, he would have been someone I would love to have had the opportunity to work with or do something with. An amazing individual, amazing human being, amazing actor, the whole thing. And I had someone close to me recently pass from cancer as well, and to see the strength he had while, you know, still filming, visiting kids in the hospital, you know, just who had cancer, who, you know, themselves. I'd love to work. I would have loved to have worked with him. I know that who wouldn't, by the way. You know, me and about, you know, the rest of the world's population. Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman from the 1990s iconic series. Just huge fan of him, right? You know, there's a director who I think is brilliant, Patty Jenkins.
Oh, yeah, she's wonderful. That'd be such a great thing to get to work with her.
Yeah, visionary, and it just has a way of seeing things and bring them to life. I just feel like I would, you know, if I got to be, I would love to just be on a project with her and just sit back and observe and learn and just be a student of hers. Yeah.
I feel that when she is done with the Wonder Woman trilogy, because I believe she said once she does the third one, she kind of wants to walk away, you know, do other things. She's going to be one of those directors that projects are going to want to pick up the phone and immediately bring her in. So,
yeah. You know what's great about her Wonder Woman film, and it's also for Black Panther, is that there's certain films that are so good, and I'm a huge fan of Wonder Woman, by the way, just in general, but in 100 years, people are going to still be watching these films. Yeah. And these films, Wonder Woman from Patty Jenkins, Black Panther from Ryan Coogler, two amazing, I love to work with Ryan Coogler too, by the way, two amazing directors, two amazing films. These films will stand the test of time, 100%. Which is insane to me, right? Would you ever watch a movie from 100 years ago and say, yeah, that still is really relevant, that stood the test of, no, absolutely not, right? But those two movies will.
I feel that way as well, and I hope that the future generations can actually appreciate them. But right. James, for those who are listening, those who are watching, where can they check out Rideshare?
You can check out Rideshare by going to Apple Podcasts and doing a search for Digital Sky. Digital Sky is kind of like the universe in which Rideshare exists. So look up Digital Sky on Apple Podcasts. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review. Also look for us on YouTube by going to the Digital Sky channel, where you can subscribe to us there. You can see the motion comics. There's going to be some cool behind-the-scenes stuff happening with our actors. Make sure to like our stuff, leave a comment. Trust me, the team reads everything that people that write about us, which may be healthy or unhealthy, I don't know. And then binge watch all of our stuff because it makes kids happy. I don't know. Just binge watch our stuff. And then you can find me on Twitter at James Gavsie, Instagram and Facebook. Look up the Who Would Win Show at Who Would Win Show on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And listen to Who Would Win Show on Apple Podcasts by typing in Who Would Win.
Awesome. Yes, everyone who is listening and watching, please make sure that you do that. I am super excited as well. And James, you have been such a fantastic guest. I feel
Oh,
like
thank you.
I must have you back on. We have so many things to talk about, and I just really hope the best for Rideshare, and I'm looking forward to your episode.
Awesome. Me too. Hopefully that happens.
Yeah. Have a good night, everyone.